What up, nerds, and welcome to another God-fearing episode of Straight Chilling, the weekly horror movie review show where you chill and we kill, slice, dice, and chop up yet another horror movie. My name's Bob. I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode 437, recorded Monday, August 21st, 2023. Tonight we're talking about the winner of the August poll, which was Prometheus. Before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show. First up, calling in from Washington, D.C., we got your boy Randeezy. What's up, man?
What's going on, children?
Hey, bud, how's it going? I hear you just got back from eating the worm.
Eating the worm? Is that what they call it? A bachelor party?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Oh, get out of
well,
town.
I mean, yeah, you had to have eaten it.
Yeah, when in Texas, right? That's what they do?
Yeah. That's what they do.
That's just what
in
they
Texas. Do. That's famous. The most famous Texan thing is eating the worm.
Oh, don't I know it?
How we holding up? Are you recovered?
Yeah, I'm tired. I'm good, but I'm very sleepy, for sure.
Yeah, that makes two of us, but I didn't have any fucking fun, so fuck you.
Sorry about your luck, man. Last but not least, calling in from South Korea, we got your boy Soju. What's up, man?
Oh, what up? It's your boy Architect Stains. I made you, and I can disintegrate you. A little bit of black goo.
Sounds hot. Mm.
Oh, yeah. Sounds like a hot Friday night, am I right?
Oh, you got to bust out the black goo. What are you doing if you don't have black goo?
Yeah, true.
I will wreck you.
Damn.
I get paid big bucks for that.
Are you ready to meet your maker?
Black goo.
Black goo.
Got me a bucket of black goo. Got me a dominatrix outfit.
Got me a bunch of white powder to whiten up my already ivory skin.
God.
Slap that bleached booty hole.
It is bleached.
You will call me your engineer. I think we're onto something here.
I'm also just as ripped as those guys.
If we just riffed it, it's existed for like 15 years on the internet. So
you're right. We're too late. Sorry. Holy shit. Before we get into the main event, we do have a little bit of housekeeping. Let's go and jump into it real quick. Here's another reminder. Our September poll is currently posted on our Patreon website. If you support us at the $5 level or above, you get the chance to vote on a movie we're talking about this September. The theme for September is the cutting room floor. This is my takeover month, and I chose three movies. Fancy boy?
Yeah. Go on, fancy boy.
I chose three movies that are about making movies. They are Shadow of the Vampire, Leslie Vernon, and All About Evil.
Whoa, Bob. How are those numbers looking?
Leslie Vernon's picking up a little steam. Shadow of the Vampire is still winning at about 50% of the vote. And nobody cares about All About Evil.
Boys, we are dangerously close to kicking off the Halloween poll. Whoa.
Yeah, really close.
True. That is true. Dangerously. It's within 4 months.
We are in danger. Right now.
You're in danger, girl.
Whoa.
Danger. So get your votes in before the end of the month, and we'll see what movie we're talking about this September. We got mini-casts dropping every other Friday per usual. This past Friday, we dropped a mini-cast on Insidious 5. You boy Soju was talking about that. Favorite movie of the year, probably?
Nah. But, you know what? Not too bad. For a fifth entry in a series, when you're rounding out number 5, hey, not too bad, you know?
Yeah.
Not too bad at all.
All right. Looking at you, Patrick Wilson. Good job.
Look, that's an aggressive way of saying that.
Looking at you.
Looking at you.
Right through your window.
Good job.
Right
Speaking
now.
of Patrick Wilson, let's get on. Let's get moving. I want to talk about this movie.
Yes.
Next up, Friday, September 1st, we're going to have another minicast dropping, and that's going to be on The Blackening. Check that out over on Patreon.
When's that coming out, Bob?
September 1st.
Ooh, I don't know, Bob. We might need to adjust that schedule, but we'll talk about that later.
You go nuts. You do whatever you got to do.
Don't touch that dial. You need to hear this.
You know, you do need to hear this. There's been, just this past week, a couple people actually reached out on social media to ask about the origins of the podcast. And it's been a long time since we mentioned, Juice, you actually made a documentary answering all of these types of questions for us.
We did. Yeah, we did make a documentary last year. Solid 1 star. It's on our YouTube page. It is Randy's favorite film now that ever exists.
It is.
It's a 5-star film.
He loves it.
Man.
But yeah, actually, it's pretty hefty. It's about 50 minutes worth of content talking about how the Straight Chilling Podcast got started and all the beginnings and other things too. Not just that, but yeah. That's up on our YouTube page, and you can watch that in full. And it's tagged to or pinned or whatever to it. It's our main video, so you don't have to go searching for it too hard.
Yeah,
man,
check it out.
Randy, how many times you watched that bad boy this week?
Oh, just the once. I can only cringe out of my skin so many times.
Randeasy, it's just so easy.
Randy stole the show. He's the star too. So, definitely tune in for Randy's part specifically,
Man, I'm nothing.
And let us know what you think about it on all social media. Call in,
Voicemail.
And specifically highlight Randy's part, compliment him.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
Oh,
so,
yes. We're the pie, but Randy's that hot whipped cream.
Wow, man! As if the movie about that's just a 45 minutes of us circle jerking couldn't get more pornographic.
Pretty sexual.
You chime in with that.
It can get on the follow up. It's gonna dip into some new territories.
Solid 3 dicks. The Straight Chilling sequel.
Clean Peens.
The
Clean Peen Committee.
Clean Peen story. Oh shit.
Story of hygiene and peen.
Here's something we hadn't mentioned yet. Some new news. I'm going to be hosting a Q&A down in Orlando at the Phantasm Festival on Saturday, September 16th, and it's going to be a Q&A for the 35th anniversary of Night of the Demons. And there's going to be a pretty large panel. Actually, there's going to be 6 of the actors. The director and one of the effects artists there, Amelia Kincaid, Linnea Quigley, Alvin Alexis, Allison Barron, Hal Havens, Donnie Jeffcoat, Nick Benson, and director Kevin Tenney. So,
whoa,
hang
damn,
out.
man.
Yeah,
Bob, that's a big responsibility.
Hope I don't.
Are you gonna do the whole Angela dance for them and
Damn.
naked
as just a tribute to them in costume?
This is for you.
I did this for you.
Bob, make sure you're handing out Straight Chilling teas to all the cast and crew. And they gotta walk away knowing who's hosting this bad boy.
I'm gonna get a t-shirt launcher and launch them shirts from 5 feet away, just blasting them.
Just sitting across a chair.
Oh God, my eyes!
Damn.
Yeah, so coming out, Phantasm Orlando.
That's awesome.
Saturday, September 16th. It'll be a good time. I think they're actually screening the movie beforehand too, so you can watch it with the cast and crew and hang out for the Q&A. So
nice.
Put it on your calendar. Anything you guys have to mention? That's all I got.
My house is
that's
clean,
about
baby.
it. This peen is clean.
This house is clean.
Hell yeah. Let's get into the main event. We're talking about Prometheus, and we are kicking it off with the back of the box.
What's on the back of the box?
Bob, I saw you had a nice little box over there. What is it? Blue? Is it blue? Is it steel? What are we talking?
It's blue steel.
It's
a blue steel.
It's a
4K.
4K. Yeah.
Oh, whoa, that's big money.
Is that?
I mean,
is it? I don't know what.
It
I
has
don't know
a
what any of these
Blu-ray
things
in
are.
it and a digital code too, though. So
whoa.
I'm rich, bitch.
All right,
Wow.
digital code.
I mean, they knew you couldn't rely on the physical media to always function properly and always be available.
Shut
So
up,
they had to
Randy.
give you something digital, of course.
So
Shut
what do
your
you?
mouth.
What do you do with the digital code? Is it like for a download? Do you store it on? I mean, that's a big file, right?
Yeah, you don't actually like download the movie. What you do is there's a couple of different websites that you can do it through, but you make an account and you enter the code, and it just gives you access to that movie through your account.
Skip to the end.
And that's it. So you can just access it wherever. It's convenient if you're like not at home, I guess. You need to watch 1,000 movies, then you can do it.
I need Prometheus at this
now. I need to watch. I'm glad Bob specifically mentioned the 1,000 movies. Okay, so that means you've purchased 1,000 movies with digital codes. Gotcha.
Aren't you a little detective? But yeah, we're talking about Prometheus. This is from 2012, rated R with a runtime of 2 hours and 4 minutes. Directed by Ridley Scott. Written by
Ripley Scott, Bob, I believe is the correct.
Ridgely. Pretty sure it's Ridley Scott.
Rigid for her pleasure, Scott.
So my boy Ripley Scott, he said,
people are gonna.
My boy Rigid Cock. He's made
dude. That's not the first time they're gonna yell at me.
I know it won't be the last.
You're assuming they're still listening, and I gave that up. So,
well, we know.
This is based.
They're only tuning in for your documentary parts now, right?
The cream, as it were.
Thank God.
This is written by, based on the original script for Alien by Dan O'Bannon, written by John Spates, Damon Lindelof, stars Noomi Rapace, Logan Marshall Green, Michael Fassbender, Idris Elba, Guy Pearce, Sean Harris, Charlize Theron, a bunch of folks. Plot synopsis brought to you by the back of the box is as follows. Legendary director Ripley Scott returns to his sci-fi origins in this epic adventure bursting with spectacular action and mind-blowing visual effects. A team of scientists and explorers travels to the darkest corners of the universe, searching for the origins of human life. Instead, they find a dark, twisted world that hides a terrifying threat capable of destroying them and all humankind. Gentlemen, have you seen this before, and would you recommend people check it out? Randeezy, kick us off.
No idea why a Borat ray just exited my mouth. I don't know. I needed to undercut the pomposity of that back of the box. Yeah, so I would definitely recommend this for fans of the Alien franchise. I don't know how much further I can go than that. If you're very interested in special effects, maybe. I don't know. I don't have a very strong recommend for general audiences on this one, so we'll just leave it at that, I guess.
Okay. Juice, what about you?
Yeah, I would. I mean, outside of the original one, within the Alien franchise, this is probably the most accessible one. I mean, Aliens, damn, I don't know. I mean, this was kind of released or perceived to as kind of like this bigger kind of sci-fi blockbuster. And I think it fits in that realm while having like the touches of horror. And, it's got a pretty stellar cast and some great visuals. So, yeah, I mean, I think I could generally recommend, especially like sci-fi fans, not just horror fans. I think this one can appeal to a little bit wider audience than some of our typical films, I guess. So, yeah, I would recommend people check this out. Bob, how about you?
Yeah, I definitely recommend this one for, fans of sci-fi and horror, and also just like even like into the action adventure kind of stuff. It starts to kind of go in that direction too. It's super entertaining, and I think there's a lot to think on for this one as well. So it's got a little something for everybody, I think. So yeah, I recommend it. It sounds like
Randy's skeptical about your statement.
Wow. I'm going to have questions.
Look,
I promise nothing.
The stink
questions.
I think that is a decent recommend from us.
Yeah. Solid recommend, I'd say.
Okay. Rain, sure. All right. Yeah. Well, we're going to spoil the shit out of this movie, and here comes your warning.
Spoiler warning.
just as a reminder, this is the film that beat out Terminator and RoboCop on our last month's poll.
It did.
That is accurate.
Yeah. So with that, Bob, give us that plot synopsis. Jesus Christ, this might be weird.
Yeah, please lay it on me.
Get ready for
Tell me
to
what happened, Bob.
Lay
With
it
all
on
the
me.
subtext, please.
Yes, I'm gonna cover it all. By the time I'm done,
Annotate
roll
that
credits.
motherfucker.
All right,
Read between the lines, please.
here we go. As a spacecraft leaves an unknown planet, we see a humanoid alien, later referred to as an engineer, drink a black liquid and dissolve his body. His molecules fly off in the wind, and he also falls down into a waterfall. In 2089, archaeologists Elizabeth Shaw and Charlie Holloway discover a star map in Scotland that matches others from several unconnected ancient cultures. They interpret this as an invitation from the engineers. Peter Whalen, the elderly CEO of Whalen Corp., funds an expedition aboard the scientific vessel Prometheus to follow the map to the distant moon LV-223. The Prometheus lands near a large artificial structure, which the team explores. Inside, they find stone cylinders, a statue of a humanoid head, and the decapitated corpse of a large species that they believe to be extinct. Milburn and Fifield grow uncomfortable, and they attempt to return to the Prometheus, but they get lost in the structure. A storm forces the crew to return to the ship. David secretly takes a cylinder with him, while the remaining ones begin leaking. In the ship's lab, the engineer's DNA is found to match that of humans. David investigates the cylinder and the liquid inside. He intentionally taints a drink with the liquid and gives it to Holloway. Shortly after Shaw and Holloway have some sex, a snake-like creature kills Milburn and sprays a fluid all over Fifield's helmet that melts it. When the crew return, they find Milburn's corpse, and David discovers a control room containing a surviving engineer in stasis and a holographic star map that highlights Earth. Meanwhile, Holloway sickens quite rapidly. He's rushed back to Prometheus, but director Meredith Vickers refuses to let him on. She ultimately burns him to death with a flamethrower. Later, a medical scan reveals that Shaw is now in advanced pregnancy, 3 months pregnant. Fearing the worst, she uses an automated surgery table to extract a squid-like creature from her stomach. Shaw then discovers that Whalen has been in stasis on the Prometheus. He explains he wants to ask the engineers how to not die from old age. Dude's like 100 years old or something. He's also Vickers' father.
He's crusty.
He looks rough.
Yeah.
A monstrous Fifield returns to the Prometheus and kills several people before being killed himself. Captain says the structure was an engineer military base that lost control of a biological weapon, the dark liquid. The structure also houses a spacecraft. Whalen and the team return to the structure. David wakes the engineer from stasis and speaks to him to try and explain what Whalen wants. The engineer responds by decapitating David and killing Whalen and the rest of the team. Sean flees and warns Janik that the engineer is planning to release the liquid on Earth. Janik and the remaining crew sacrifice themselves by ramming the Prometheus into the alien craft, ejecting the lifeboat in the process. The engineer's disabled spacecraft crashes onto the ground, killing Vickers. Shaw goes to the lifeboat and finds her alien offspring is still alive and has gotten fucking huge. The engineer attacks Shaw, who releases her alien offspring onto him. Shaw recovers.
I'm tired of this, Grandpa!
That's too damn bad!
That is too damn bad. Shaw recovers David's remains, and with his help launches another engineer spacecraft. She intends to reach the engineer's homeworld in an attempt to understand why they wanted to destroy humanity. Roll them credits.
I don't even want to be around anymore.
Poor little Randy. He wants to go home.
I've seen this movie several times, 5, 6 times, and every time before I go into it and like occupied in my mind space, I always think like, yeah, I understand what this movie is about. I have no problem. And then like in the first half of this movie, I'm always like, yeah, I know what this movie's about. And then as it keeps going on and on and on, I always remember like, oh fuck, there's a lot of shit going on here.
There's a lot of shit.
Confusing.
Yeah, there's a reason that I kind of felt like I couldn't I mean, I could, but I don't generally recommend this to people who aren't already familiar with Alien franchise, because so much of what I actually did like about this movie is informed explicitly by those movies. You know what I mean? And they come from existing lore, and I'm like, oh, cool. So this is where Wayland comes from, or whatever. Like this is okay. I can see where they're pulling these out of the the old story and making, new things out of it. But it just like, it starts to get really confusing and becomes kind of a tangled mess. I also
forgot to mention in my plot synopsis a very important thing. There's a little tag at the end where we see the first xenomorph pop out of one of the engineers.
Chest bursts out of an engineer.
Yeah, so that's pretty important. My bad.
But that's where it gets kind of confusing, is because there's a lot of things in here that when I really start to think about it, I think because there's so many things to consider, that I get confused, because I'm trying to, they leave a lot open so that you can, say like, okay, well, that's where that came from, without having to tell you. And I kind of appreciate that in some capacity, except there's too damn much going on in this movie. They crammed, I'm talking ideas wise, like things to ponder, as well as alien lore and backstory, and also motivations for the people that are actually in this film. So when you're just trying to put basic story pieces together, but then also you're like, okay, well, wait, that ties into a whole nother franchise and movie and lore that I also want to consider, but also I got to consider like this new extra lore that they're adding on to me. It becomes pretty overwhelming, honestly.
It is very overwhelming.
I think the core of the movie is fairly simple, though. It's just sentient life wanting to know why it is and where it came from, and like the idea of actually being able to meet your maker and ask them those questions is going to be pretty damn appealing to any sentient life, whether it be human or the AI David. And there's like parallels there for sure. And
the question of life, why are we here? Yeah,
right. And like as a general broad concept, that's all very compelling, but like the way it kind of plays out is so convoluted that I don't know. Like, go ahead, Bob.
I think it's interesting that, like, I mean, the name of the movie is Prometheus. Prometheus, from Greek mythology, gave humans fire and like challenged the gods, and like, and that is very much not like New Testament Bible, anyways, as far as I understand it. So there's a lot of like comparing and contrasting.
Pretty different.
Yeah. So like.
Hot tub Christianity.
There's a lot of like Christianity being referenced here, but not just Christianity. And I don't know, like David, I don't know enough about the Bible. You guys definitely know more than I do, honestly, but like the character of David obviously is a direct reference to the Bible, and there's a lot of like questions about meeting your maker. And like as far as Christianity goes, New Testament, we nowadays just kind of assume that our maker is very like benevolent and kind and would not be like these engineers, whereas like Greek mythology is very much not that way at all. And you don't know, just like being faced with your maker and not being able to ask those questions and not getting the answers you want. And then it's really interesting that Shaw, like even at the end, puts her cross back on her neck and like still just like is so ready to go seeking for more answers. And she's just gonna be let down again. It's like that innate need to understand where we come from, even if like all the information that you have on hand is like negative. Like leave it alone. It's gonna be your downfall. I don't know. It's an interesting thing to ponder, I think. And David being surrounded by his makers and just like knowing right off the bat that like we're so fucking disappointing to him, that he challenges us, and that's what Prometheus does as far as the Greek mythology is concerned. So like there's like a lot of repetition in these layers, I think, that's interesting.
Well, it's kind of, I mean, go ahead, Randy.
No, I mean, you start.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, it even kind of takes on some like consistent themes we've seen in other things dealing with like AI and science, or even just like creation. I mean, because there's also this tie-in with birth and the idea of creating life and kind of like generational trauma. We are not trauma necessarily, but like, you're passing down kind of like your burdens, or why do we even continue to make life in a way? Because you have this rift like between this actual father and an actual daughter. You have this rift between a creator in the form of humans and this android, and the difference between them and the rift that creates, and the kind of questions around why, or what's my purpose, or like, what is, why am I here? and then how that ties into the engineers and like the disappointment that comes from that, like that dude just being like drowning his sorrows and like he's not getting the answers he seeks. And so it kind of comes in this way. It's kind of got this like theme of kind of like generational trauma, or just reconciling your existence through the idea of like somebody created me with no purpose. I don't know. I think David says, this is a quote from David, and I think it really like gets to the, like, if there is a point of this movie, I think this would be it. He says it doesn't matter where we came from, because there's nothing special about the creation of life. And I think that point is really driven home at the very end of this movie when we see the birth of the first xenomorph. And it's like such a like convoluted hot mess of how that thing came to be. It's just like good intentions mixed with like horrific accidents and like people playing with like, I don't know, like David dropping the little like black goo into the drink, and it's just like all this like fucked up stuff that really has no meaning at all, and then it gives birth to this new form of life.
Dude, yeah, I guess that's what's so like hard for me, as like I feel like this is a movie that's got so much going on, that's trying to communicate so much at once, that it's not really possible to get your head around it on the first viewing. I don't know about like on subsequent viewings. Like, it sounds like you guys are still like grappling with it, and it leaves open questions that are like questions that have to remain open because no human knows the answer to them. So understandable. But like all these things you guys are talking about, they're all good themes, but like it's tough to focus on any one of them because they keep jumping from one to the other. And all I really want at the core of this to really make it more enjoyable is to have like less of, I don't know if there's just like too many characters, and I don't really understand a lot of these people's motivations. A lot of people are just like doing things without like having any clear motivation, at least one that like maybe you find out later, or maybe you kind of do, or like maybe they change. I don't know. Like, did Fassbender like know that he was going to get his head ripped off? Like, did he like? I don't understand like why he poisoned Logan Marshall Green's character. I don't understand why Marshall Green's character like has this like little breakdown about like one day in his promised land and not finding everything he possibly could have wanted, and he's like, oh fuck this. Like, what? I don't understand that. Like, you've been searching for this your whole life. You get here, you go in there, and you look around for a second, you say, this is a tomb too, and then you like, I don't get like I understand like there could be a theme there of like, oh, being disappointed in what you find out about your origins. I understand that as a theme, but in practice, it's just sort of like, I don't understand what this character's after. What is he disappointed in? And any archaeologist, any like scientist that's been researching this for like their entire lives, just being on this planet and getting to look at it from the outside should blow his fucking tits off. And nobody seems impressed about any part of this. And I know that it's the future. I know that there's space travel's a thing, but it's not a thing for people to come across the origins of your species, irrefutable evidence of a lack of like the traditional Christian God, let's say, or like, and like just have no real response to it other than Fifield getting a little freaked out and trying to leave, and everybody else is just sort of like, I don't give a fuck. Even when they in the face of like this humanity altering information, nobody seems to care, and the ones who do seem really not interested to find out more, except for Shaw. And then we're supposed to see that as a flaw at the end because she's like continuing to pursue a truth that ultimately is just like backtracking through a chaotic world with no Prometheus point in it. Like, is that it?
This time around, I think my biggest problem is I convoluted it, or like just packing too much in is probably number two. But my number one is nobody, not a single person in this film acts the way they should.
Right.
Like they have. So this is a scientific mission. They specifically pick different scientists, which makes sense to represent. One of them is the biologist. Mm-hmm. And the biologist gets too scared of a body of a giant where its head severed. He's the dude who pieces out. And yet, when a snake thing shows up that's alive, that has no explanation, he's totally chill with it and approaches it in the dumbest fucking way. Also, the dude who is in charge of mapping, who has created this unique technology that provides mapping services for the whole ship and crew, gets lost?
Yeah.
What? Like,
there's just so much of that.
The scientist, like Randy said, the scientist who has spent his life looking at pictures in a cave just dissolves into a drunken stupor because he found a spaceship with a body with computers and jars of shit that's coming to life, and he's fucking, that's not good enough.
I mean, yeah, that's a fair point. I think he was primarily upset because they blow the head up and find out that they're not immortal. They're really no different than humans. Their DNA is identical. It matches human DNA, so they're not.
But he's drinking before that. So even when they show him drinking when they're taking, even before the head, when they're taking the head out, he's in the background with a bottle already. Oh, it's like chilling. His whole like demeanor is,
he's kind of a dude,
not of a scientist. Yeah.
It's kind of a weird vibe.
Yeah.
His demeanor sucks. Like, he's not a likable character. And then, like, I don't understand why Fassbender wants to kill him. Like, is it just because he knows he's going to go fuck Shaw and they can start programming? Well, how would he know that? Like, any of this.
So here's my interpretation of why, in some ways, it kind of makes some sense, I guess. Here's how I justified it here's how I'm kind of like wrestling with it in my mind, is that they go there and it seems like everything's dead. Okay. Except he takes the black goo. So then Fassbender, David, he goes and he speaks with the old man. And at this point, they don't know that there's an engineer that's still alive. And the old man specifically says, try harder, because his whole thing is like, I'm on a limited time basis here. I want to unlock that idea for immortality. So we found this thing that might have some tie to that. So he says, try harder. So David literally even kind of like asks permission in a way. He's like, what would you do to get the answers that you seek? And he's like, I'd do anything. So he poisons him. Now, this is to like fuck with his DNA in some way. But the problem with that is in order for that idea to continue on, they had to have sex for a thing to be growth inside of her. Otherwise, this dude would have just disintegrated, or he gets torched and nothing comes from it. And David would have not. And David doesn't try to intervene. Like, after David poisons him, it's not like he's watching him or he's taking samples of him or he's like putting him in a tube so he can study him. He just poisons him.
He fucks off. Yeah.
And lets him go. And he gets burned to shit. And so if they hadn't had sex, absolutely nothing would have come from poisoning the guy who got you to the planet where the engineers are. Like, this is the guy who knows all about it. Why wouldn't you poison like a pilot or like, you know, like somebody who maybe is a little bit more expendable than the guy who got you where you're at?
You could I think you could argue it a couple different ways. It could be just the continuation of Prometheus challenging gods, like he's just challenging his makers. Or you could read it the other way and say, you know, this guy said he's willing to do anything to understand, and maybe this android thinks I'm going to help this guy out right now because that's my programming, and drop the little thing in his whatever, and so that I can help him understand.
And that's another thing, is like, and this is like a through line through all of Alien franchise, so fine.
Yeah.
But like the whatever they're called, the robots, like
androids.
They are treated, the androids, they're treated and talked about as if they don't have real feelings. But it's clear that Fassbender is like Machiavellian as shit. So like I could understand if he does feel emotions wanting to kill Logan Marshall Green, because Logan Marshall Green keeps denigrating him the whole time he's there up until this point, and he keeps being a dickhead to him, and he's like, fuck you. But I don't understand why he wants to poison anyone. And if the only goal is to have a woman impregnated with an infected man's semen, like
Maybe he
so
thought
that they can create this thing.
Maybe he thought that would make another engineer. He doesn't know, but he's trying to seek out answers. Maybe, and this is before they find the one that's still alive. Maybe.
Yeah, they don't know an engineer's still alive.
No, like that seems like all of that. Then seems like confusing to no end. Like literally to no purpose.
And also, we have to consider too that at this point, David is the only one who understands like the language and stuff. So they go in the ship, there's writings on the ship. He knows how to like play the hologram. So at this point, he might have some information about what the thing is. And to be fair, and this is kind of where it gets confusing to me, honestly. The very first thing we've seen is the black goo is used to create life. So the whole idea about this is the culture of these people is they show up on a planet that is suitable for creating life. One of them takes the black goo to disintegrate their own DNA to mix it in the water and the atmosphere of the world so that they can evolve into something new and populate a planet with their own DNA. Okay, that's the idea. So from that perspective, he could say, well, I'm gonna, the black goo is in a kind of way a source of life. It aids in the growth of life or whatever, or the distribution of life. So maybe this will help my guy who's in charge in some way, but I'm not going to experiment on him. I'm going to give it to some fuck or whatever. But then the black goo turns into this whole thing where it is this weapon where he's like, they're creating weapons of mass destruction. I'm like, well, whoa, wait a second. This was like part of their whole life-giving ritual. What are you talking about? It's a weapon of mass destruction. So I don't understand like the black goo anymore. Like, I don't understand the purpose of it.
That I think, like, my understanding of it was this. Okay. I don't think they make a point to say that the engineer that survives, the one that comes back to life and beats the shit out of people, he's trying to go back to Earth to eradicate the human species so that they can try again. So it seems like these weapons of mass destruction, it's like these are like, they're not xenomorphs yet, but like they're some sort of creature that can become like monstrous and just like decimate a planet. Basically, that's what they're for. They're a weapon, and they take them to a planet that has creatures on it, destroy those creatures, I guess, with these things, and then do what that guy at the beginning did and like become like a primordial ooze from which something that comes from then can spring forth and populate the planet after those things are done. And then if they don't like their creation, like in this case of Earth, they say, okay, well, let's scrub it and do it again, because to them, the human beings are no different than Fassbender is to the humans. So like, I could understand like that part of it. I don't know. It's just like, that's just the broad strokes. And it took a lot of figuring out for my dumbass to like get to that point. And I just like the real thing that was keeping me from understanding it is like some of the decisions, like you were saying, I think this is really the core issue. Some of the decisions that individuals are making are so incomprehensible, but like everything in this movie is so intentional that it makes me want to ascribe intention to it. But I really think that they're just like poorly written in a lot of cases, to the point where like this Fifield guy, you pointed out all the problems with that, like Logan Marshall Green's character, all the problems with that. Like I just don't really understand like nuts and bolts, decision to decision, why some of these characters make the decisions they do. What does Charlize Theron want? What is she there for? What does she want? She just wants to be in control of the company?
I think
is that it?
Just doing what her father tells her to. And I guess should he die? Yeah, I mean, she's going to be in control of it, but.
And like, what a waste of Charlize Theron, by the way, in general. Like, she is given very little to play off of, and what it is just like sort of Ice Queen stuff, like that's like cold and stuff, like to the point where she's literally called a robot by Idris Elba, who's doing the worst accent I've ever heard Idris Elba do.
Dude, that accent it's rough. All over the place.
It's way all over the place.
It is way all over the place.
It's almost as bad as us doing a British accent.
Well,
dude,
yeah.
Yeah, well, we're also not professional actors. So I mean, I love Idris. I was psyched to see him.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I mean, he's definitely one of the most like charming, compelling people in there. But I specifically was noticing the accent going
it slips
all over
hard.
the place.
Yeah.
He might be the only likable character besides Shaw in this whole movie.
Yeah.
And also incomprehensible decisions of production. Why the fuck did they bring in Guy Pearce just to slather him in like the worst fucking old guy makeup? Just get an old guy. Put Abe Vigoda in this movie or some shit. Like anybody. Put Mel Brooks in this movie.
Yeah, the thing about this movie is I want to say, like, it looks fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, it looks amazing. There's this old crusty piece of shit who looks terrible. Like, how does that happen? Also, here's another thing that doesn't make a lick of sense. And here's a problem I have. It sounds like a similar problem, but it's actually a different problem. Where this movie wants to have its cake and kind of eat it too in this way of I hated the idea that British guy, the mapping guy, whatever,
Fifield,
falls face first into black goo. Now, we've already seen two things. We've seen a giant engineer motherfucker drink a cup of it and disintegrate within a minute. His whole body. We've seen a human being take a drop of it and essentially disintegrate within a day's time. Half a day, 12 hours ish. Okay. Mm-hmm. This motherfucker falls face first into it and for some reason becomes a zombie that is intent on killing people. So
a big frontal lobe.
So what this movie does is it's like, okay, well, we want to, and they even promoted it as like, okay, we're continuing on this alien story. We're essentially giving this backstory to the story. We're going back to that planet. You know, the ship, you style it. We're answering some questions like, I like how they did the mask thing and stuff like that. Stuff we see from Alien. Okay. The very first one. So they're like, okay, well, we're going to kind of have this horror movie, but like 90% of the deaths come from that scene where this zombie thing just rips everyone apart for some reason. And then the other deaths come from this just hulking white engineer motherfucker who also just beats the hell out of people. So you have like two scenes. Mm-hmm. As the horror element in this, it almost just seems like this afterthought of like, let's just give it.
Well, let's just throw this in here. And you've got the scene in the pod where she cuts her belly open and there's a giant squid. The scene of the
but no deaths come out of that. I'm talking about like things that like progress for like the decimation of this crew.
I feel like horror is not
towards the end of the movie. Without that, the end of the movie wouldn't exist at all.
I think that the horror aspect of this movie is not the primary genre I would classify.
Well, it's not, but that's the thing that's why I said they kind of want to have their cake and eat it too, because it's like, it's this mix of like, we want to, it's like this idea, we got to get to this idea of creation and all that thing. And in a way, to be fair, they do tie in that to then it becomes yet another creation. We have like 5 steps of creation in this film where the xenomorph is created or whatever. But it's the thing is like, it's almost like they're like, it's almost like they're making this movie and they're positing these deep questions and this lore. And then they're like, oh, fuck. We're making an alien movie. We gotta like throw this shit in there. Let's throw this snake thing in there. And to be fair, the snake thing is the most kind of consistent thing with what you would expect from like an alien film. Because then again, like I said, now that the xenomorph, the thing comes out of her belly, and that is horrific, but it plays into the end of the movie, but it doesn't like nobody's running from this thing. It sits in a pod for the next 30 minutes, frozen, until it's unleashed in a 2-minute scene where it wrestles with an engineer to create a xenomorph.
You said it didn't have purpose. It does. It has a lot of purpose.
It plays into the story. Yeah. It's just like, but like the meaning of it is kind of lost. This is the thing is like, I see what you're saying. And I think that I kind of agree is that it's just trying to do, it wants to play an existential dread but in order to do that, it plays in like slasher dread. And I don't know that they really marry that well in this movie. They kind of seem distinctly different from each other. Like in Alien, it was just hunter and prey. That was all it was. And it fucking worked as horror because of that. It worked as that kind of horror. But this one is clearly going for a meaning of life, existential dread, existential horror thing. Mm-hmm. And it definitely plays like it plays heavily with that, but like it still relies on the old slasher tricks, the old hunter and prey stuff, which doesn't really pack the same punch in the face of things like meeting your creator or whatever. And if you're gonna do like if you're gonna include these kind of scenes, I think that the abortion scene is really cool. Like I thought that was really well done. There's some confusing aspects of it, which I'll get to maybe later, but like that's existential dread. I think that works to me. And the fact that it came up later and became sort of like the Deus Ex Machina that saves Shaw at the end, I think that works narratively. I think all that's great. It's the zombie guy, like you said, that kind of like feels like part of a different kind of, it feels like part of Alien versus Predator just kind of snuck into this movie, or Alien Requiem or whatever, like one of the latter day Aliens where they're just kind of like painting it by numbers to some degree.
That did not bother me at all, honestly.
Really? The zombie guy didn't bother you?
No, not really. It's just alien shit. Like it just, I don't know. It does what it does. Like I don't need it.
But why wouldn't he disintegrate?
That was my problem.
I don't know. I mean, it's alien goop shit. How does it work? I don't know.
But why would he beat wholesale ass?
I don't know. I mean, clearly it affects humans differently than it does the engineers. But
we saw how it affected humans. That dude literally disintegrated.
Well, but then this girl grows a thing in her belly too, and like so. I mean,
but that's because it's that man's sperm that got into her uterus.
Well, and that's another thing.
It's essentially a sperm.
It's a sperm baby. So this is like
it's like a giant sperm.
Hell yeah.
This is one thing I want to touch on because we all know we talked about at length the undertones, the unspoken mostly stuff.
That's where
Aliens, where it's talking about like parentage, motherhood, and specifically like procreation in general. So like the idea of like going, okay, we know procreation. Let's talk about the origin of the species, and that's an interesting way to take this movie. Well done, Ridley Scott.
Ridley Scott.
But like when they try and pull that into this, and they clearly do because they do things like those snake things look like fucking semen that open up into vaginas. What? And then she has an abortion in this machine that was there specifically. It says specifically this was intended for male users only, which at that time doesn't make a whole lot of sense because we don't know Wayland's on board yet, or we don't officially know. I guess you might suspect, but I didn't. And so like I was like, so what is this trying to say? Like she had to like work around. I don't know what this is trying to say about like all of that stuff that it's just bringing back from the previous movie. I don't know if it's just because it needs to be there to make the lore consistent, but to me it just feels like another layer that I'm not quite getting. Like I want to get it. I do.
Here's what I kind of liked, and this is where we talked about in Alien, and again at the beginning of the show I kind of referenced like, oh, we're gonna get some more shit because we literally were left a review where somebody was like, don't bring your politics, or because we were talking about Geiger and how sexual how clearly sexual it was, and that people didn't like that idea. Yeah, it's like it is
that android is
that man is. Well, again, so we have this again where we constantly see men. Well, okay, so to kind of start, I guess, from the beginning, in this, the whole thing is in every aspect of this film except one, males are creating. Okay, male figures are the creators of life. So it starts up with the very first scene, the engineer. He's the creator of all humanity or whatever. Wayland,
it may be sexless. We don't really know, but that's it's presented as male to our eyes.
Fair, yeah. Wayland creates David and even references him as like, oh, the son I never had or whatever. You know, he does it that way, even though he's got a fucking daughter that nobody knows about or knows they're connected. And then even again at the very end where we have essentially what is the first face hugger, you know, penetrating the the engineer again, like in the face. The snake like goes into the guy's mouth or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So like it's the same kind of beats again. And even to the point of the machine, like that was an intentional thing to say, like, this is calibrated for a man. We can't perform this abortion or whatever. And even the aspect before that, now this was like these aspects I thought really worked for me on a kind of like, we're talking about fear and horror level. When David does the whole thing of when he's like, there's something inside you or you're pregnant, and he's like, oh, it's not a normal fetus. And she's like, get it out of me. Like, get it. And he's like, you know what? I think we're just going to freeze you and we'll take care of it. And like her panic, that felt real and was so effective. That was some real horror where you're like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, you know, get this shit out of me. And
she's also slowly becoming more physically like similar to Ripley. I think. Did you guys notice that too? It seemed intentional to me.
Well, the fact that she has to fight to protect her own body, like to be like, people are like, oh, we're gonna sedate you, we're gonna put you over here, and they're like, we're taking care of you, and it's like, motherfuckers, I'm gonna get this shit out of me. Those kind of aspects were great. Not the scene where a dude shows up and just starts beating wholesale ass. I'm like, come on, like, you're doing pretty good. You have good moments. Even honestly, like, even when they go into the ship and they're talking about, now this is another confusing part. They're talking about like, oh, look at all these corpses. Something burst out of their chest. And I'm thinking like, by the end of the movie, I'm thinking like, well, hang on, wait a second. The only reason we got a chest burster in the first place is because the black goo mixed with human DNA, which then mixed with another human DNA, which then mixed with a engineer's DNA to create a chest burster. Where did all of these other chest bursters come from that killed this crew?
So, I think I could posit, and I don't know how right this is. I'm completely shooting from the hip here because you raise a good question. Like, you've got these little semen demons, right, rolling around that attack.
But that was created. That was created because the black goo mixed with the worms in the ground.
I guess I didn't catch like worms. I didn't even notice any worms.
Yeah. So when they open that door that's decapitated the guy,
the worm. Yeah, they track worms in or something.
No. It literally, because it's like a sealed environment or whatever, you know. And then they're like, oh, they specifically, there's like this shot that lasts for like 2 to 3 seconds where it's the bottom of a jar, but there's like little worms in the ground. They just show like a shot of worms.
I don't know what that is. My theory was that it was like, so you see these chest bursted aliens. I don't think that chest bursting is necessarily inherent to just the xenomorphs we know. I think that like whatever these semen demons are could have been chest bursters, and they're what's left after destroying those creatures or destroying the engineers, except for the one who got to a pod. But like, and
totally
then,
fair. Yeah, there's just shit that maybe we didn't see.
If it is mixing with the worms, like are they like earthworms? Like,
but they're like almost. They almost are like maggots or whatever. Like they're just like grubs in the ground.
Huh. I don't know,
but the problem is the worm that we see, or the snake thing that we see, it doesn't chest burst.
No, it goes for the mouth though.
Yeah, it goes in that dude's mouth.
The same way a facehugger goes.
Yeah, but it didn't burst out of his chest. And then we get the other guy whose face is full of black goo. There's no chest bursting.
I don't know.
We don't see it. That's true. I don't know, man. And it's
clearly like this black goo makes all kinds of different shit. And like, I'm willing to say, I don't know. Like, there's some shit that happened off screen 2,000 years ago when all these guys died, and like it's just not around anymore. And I think that's pretty easy to accept.
You know, in a logical sense, it is fine that these things don't make sense because it's a movie. But also, movies can and should make sense if they're trying to do this many metaphors at once. I think that there should be like a level where I can like, if it's supposed to be a Lynchian thing where I'm supposed to just sort of float through it and figure out what I feel about it, I don't think that's what this is. It's telling a very explicit story. It's just doing it a lot all at once. And also, it's not consistent with itself. Like, for it to have, I don't know. This is the same problem I had with like the first Quiet Place. I made the same argument, I think, where it was like there's the world is like, they go to great pains to set this world in a way that makes a kind of sense, to give it an internal logic, and then some things don't apply to that internal logic or don't seem to, and we're supposed to be like, well, that's just the magic part. And it's like, this movie's not magical. This movie is trying to set like a certain standard of like believability,
hard
and
sci-fi.
like, I don't know. It's just like,
well, it sets
I don't know.
a form
it's
of
just hard
logic
for me to
that
commit my
follows
brain
you.
to it.
Yeah, it sets a logic that, I mean, so the problem is, I think they have two end goals. The first huge main end goal is, we want to show how the first xenomorph was created. That's going to be the tie-in to the Alien franchise. That's what this movie is going to be. Okay. It's going to be a prequel. It's going to show the origin of a xenomorph. Okay. So we have those beats. We have the black goo. We have the xenomorph pop out, the very first face hugger, how that got to be. And that's fine too. But then they also want to do this huge lore of the engineers and this idea of your creator and meeting your maker and things like that. And that's a prominent thing. And those, a lot of the times, I feel like those things don't really connect well, and they're trying to do too much.
Well,
I think they're really just trying to do too much.
I mean, as we've seen in some of the other Alien sequels, there's a ton of different kinds of xenomorphs. There's not just like one kind. So I think
it has to do with how it mixes with your body. Yeah.
So
right.
to
Who it's
assume that
bursting out
like
of
different
matters.
sorts existed before this movie happened, I think would be a fair assumption to make. It's just this is the birth of this specific kind that we've seen in the other movies, I guess.
It could be, except here's the problem I have with it in a kind of way. So in here, if I'm even trying to play their game, like I'm like, I love Alien, and ooh, how do these things connect? Well, in the Alien movie, ooh, how do these things connect?
Let's connect. Ooh.
Well, in the not like that.
Wrong bump.
Yeah.
No,
in
that's the
the
right
first, in the first movie, it's all eggs, right? Okay, the eggs are the chest bursters that pop out. Okay.
There's
in this
no
one,
sex in Alien, let me tell you. These eggs,
There's no
these
sex in the
these
champagne
white
room.
Well, no,
wormies
but in this one, it's the black goo.
Yeah.
Okay, so in Alien, there's no fucking black goo. So, okay, I can make the assumption like, okay, well, this xenomorph that we see birth from this chest burster
Distilled.
that's what's going to lay the eggs. Okay, that's what's going to lay the eggs that we will later find in Alien, the first one. Okay, but like, there's no remnants of these things that, if this alien is able to live on this planet and lay a shit ton of eggs that is going to exist for Alien 1, like, where's everything else?
I don't know, I guess like the finer details of like how A plus B equals C is not really making or breaking this movie for me. It's not what makes the movie interesting. Like just the idea of like meeting your maker and like the themes and repetition therein between the engineers and humans and AI and like the persistence in getting answers, even though you're faced with like such horrific shit, which is true to humanity to this day. Like, no matter what fucking happens, we're relentless in the search. And if anybody were able to jump on one of fucking Jeff Bezos' ships or whatever the fuck and go ask God, what the fuck, dude, anybody would do that if they could. So that's what's like really interesting to me. Like, if there's a zombie guy or like I don't understand the worm, I'm kind of willing to roll with it, because I do think like this, it's really, really fucking hard to make a decent prequel. And I would say this is a good prequel, especially to a classic movie of any genre whatsoever. And I think there's a lot of expectations that go into making a prequel, especially of a classic. And you got Ridley Scott returning, my boy Rigid Scott returning to this franchise to make this movie. And I think it's very clear that he's mostly interested in like posing these questions and these themes, more so than he is in like explaining exactly where a xenomorph came from, even though he does leave the breadcrumbs there. And it's interesting and satisfying enough to me anyways. It clearly isn't enough for everybody, but I think he checks those boxes fine.
No, you're right. Like the thing is, like, it's totally fair to enjoy this movie on that level. I think, like, and to enjoy really any of the Alien movies on that level. That's the level on which I enjoy the Alien versus Predator movie. To whatever extent I enjoy that, it's because of the killy stab alien goop shit. I like all that stuff, fine. And a zombie and that doesn't faze me one bit. The problem for me is just like it makes strange bedfellows for me with this very high-minded point of view that's trying to be espoused here about the nature of creation and whether or not gods exist or whether or not we're just birthed from other inferior creatures or like what all this stuff. Those are all very good ideas. And I feel like to whatever extent they are focused on, which is a lot, it's like obfuscated by these like little inconsistencies and it makes it harder for me to get there. So like to me, that's a flaw.
That's fair.
I would say, I would say, well, I would say too, it's like, I agree. I want the alien aspects and the fact that there's some rich kind of things to ponder. Actually, that's a benefit for me and things that I actually also the fact that this movie, again, you know, we've been railing this, it's fucking beautiful.
It is
for the most part. It's just the scenes, the shots that they do, the set designs with the head and the goop and like it all looks so fantastic. Even the holograms and shit like that look great.
Yeah. They really bridge the gap between like the 80s futurism that they do and the Alien and then what you see here. They do a good job with that shit. So yeah, continue.
But what it feels like to me is it feels like Ridley really, it feels like a passionate thing. It's almost kind of like a James Cameron with Avatar a little bit, where it's like, this is actually my real passion. I want to tell this story about deforestation or whatever, where in this one, he's like, I really, really want to explore the ideas of creation and where people come from and facing your maker and stuff like that. But also I got to make a film that ties into Alien and is entertaining. And so, and I feel those riffs because, and we even feel it because I think this movie is very, very similar to its follow-up, Covenant, but they doubled down. Instead of saying like, maybe let's like smooth some of that out, they fucking go twice as hard. And it's like, okay, then you really like, having that movie inform this one also is affecting my opinion too, because I'm saying like, okay, these things, it's a little rough. It's, to be fair, it's pretty good, but it also, it's a little rough and it's a little prickly in spots. And it's like, when you know that they really, really, really want to focus on the lore and like the ideas, then you're like, okay, that really takes them down a bad path.
It's true. Like, I don't know. It just really feels like there's a little bit of incongruity and that little bit of like sand in the gears here really trips me up. And I don't know really what to do about that. The thing is, like, you look at Alien, the movie, this is largely like reacting like this is a prequel to that movie and it's a clearly integrally tied in. That movie told a deeper story. It did. It did it though with a very simple surface layer story. This movie kind of complicates all of it at once and makes the simple fear of something coming after you is replaced with like just confusion kind of. So like the horror aspect suffers and the like the metaphoric level, like the true story that's trying to be communicated here is obfuscated by that failure. So I don't know. Those are like the big things for me. And I gotta agree though. Like I love a whole lot about this movie. And a lot of it's visual. Even some of the performances, as much as I don't understand what the characters are doing, they're well done performances for the most part.
This cast is stacked.
It is. It's a great cast, and they're all very capable actors and actresses. They're fucking great. But then you do shit like have Charlize Theron be just very icy and like not have a lot of emotion except for one scene, which sure should be the scene she has emotion to. But it's like she's very like, I'm unclear what she wants most of the time. And then she dies in the dumbest way fucking possible, which like I don't understand. That scene will stick with me as being like, what were they fucking thinking with this? These are scientists and space fucking navigators and shit. And they don't know to just like walk the opposite direction so that you don't get crushed by the big rolling wheel. They're doing the same thing as that guy in Austin Powers, just screaming at the fucking rolling thing and just getting crushed for no reason.
Speaking of ships crash landing, it's time to land this plane. Ray and Deezy, why don't you kick us off? Out of 5, how do you feel about Prometheus?
I mean, this one is a tough one for me because there's a lot that I can and want to complain about. Guy Pearce's makeup, the roly pinwheel of death, the misuse of Charlize Theron's character, the confusing character motivations, the incongruous lore issues, and like the disservice all that does to what is ultimately a very interesting core premise and aesthetic. Those things, they nail those two things. And it's fucking great. Like it looks like an Alien movie in every positive sense of that, for the most part, except for Guy Pearce. And so like, I don't know. Sometimes it's worse to have something that's near perfect. Do you know what I mean? Like this is what this feels like. And like,
serve me shit instead.
I mean, honestly, it's easy to laugh at schlock because it's low stakes, but this has such high stakes and it presents itself as such that it kind of endangers itself of feeling pretentious, despite having like pretty interesting core thoughts going on, at least for the ones I've deciphered. And that's the issue, is like, I don't know that I'll ever really decipher this completely, and maybe that's part of what he wants, is for it to be inscrutable to some degree, and that's fine. I think all that can be accomplished without going to like very obvious wells of like confusion and like confoundingness, like not understanding what characters want from moment to moment. Like I'm supposed to understand that. I'm supposed to understand what the stakes are for the insert characters, for the characters that I'm invested in. I'm supposed to understand that to some degree. Like to have Michael Fassbender's character be a little bit conniving or whatever and have something going on behind the scenes, that's great. But like every character feels that way to some degree, except for Idris Elba. Everybody seems like they're harboring some secret thing that they want or whatever, or they're poorly communicating what they do want. And it makes it hard for me to invest in the moment. I can only enjoy this primarily from a wide angle lens. I cannot go microscopic with this movie. At least not as much as I would like to, because it's an interesting idea. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess my score is going to have to like reflect both of those contradicting things. I'm going to give it a 3.5. It's a good movie. I would watch it again just to try and decipher it a little bit more. Not anytime soon, but like I like talking about it, and that's always a good sign. Was this your first
watch, Randy?
Yeah, I'd never seen this before. I don't know if I mentioned that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I've never seen this before. This and
Covenant.
Oh God, no, I have seen Covenant. We did it on the show. I don't remember anything about it. I'll tell you that.
You mean
except for Fassbender? No, we did Covenant. Like when it came out.
You were talking about a movie. I was trying to.
Oh yeah, Resurrection. Yes, Resurrection and 3. I think are the two that I have not seen.
Not Resurrection.
We reviewed 3 on the show, man.
No, wait, no, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, we did 3 on the show.
I'm used to saying that because it used to be true that I had never seen it before we were on the show. So like, it's Resurrection. It's the one with fucking Winona Ryder. That I haven't seen.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one. That's the only one I haven't seen yet.
Resurrection.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So that at this point is the only one that I can think of that I haven't seen. And I like them. I like all of them to varying degree, but the first 2 are untouchable. Even by this, I don't see this as being very much a contender for that crown. I think it's does really well, and I think it's got a lot to say that I would love to see more of. And I feel like if Ridley Scott could have made this movie instead of ever having done Alien, like he might have done that, and it might have not had so much baggage to carry around, and might have made its point better. If it had been just an entirely different sci-fi movie, I think this could have been better, maybe. But he had already used so many of those ideas, he couldn't backtrack on that now. So I understand too. I don't know. 3.5. Sorry, I kept going there.
3.5. All
right.
From Randy.
Bob.
Hey.
Out of 5. Prometheus. The Alien story. Where are you going to put it?
Nailed it. I'm a little hotter on this than Randeezy. I think just the overall like idea of the very like treacherous or even like futile path in trying to understand why we are here and what we are doing, and the modern day assumption that our makers are these benevolent beings that have great purpose in what they've done. And just like seeing David and how fucking disappointed he is in us, like pretty much the whole movie, and he's just surrounded by fucking morons, and then meeting the engineers, and of course they are fucking disappointed in what they've created. And it's just like these ideas I think are super, super interesting. And then like at the end of the movie, just to wrap it up with like, it's an incessant need. It's like it's never going away, and like just the destruction that it causes, that like religion has and continues to cause, and it's all in search of like answering these questions. I think this is a very bleak movie at the end of the day, even though it ends on like kind of a positive note. Look, Shaw survives. She's definitely a believer in Christ. She puts her cross necklace back on, but like, all of her friends are dead. It's just her in a fucking android's head, and like that's it. And she's leaving to great uncertainty. She doesn't really know what she's gonna find, but she's not gonna stop searching. I don't know much about Ridley Scott as like a person. I don't know if he's like a religious person or not, but like this reads fairly negative to me in that regard. I think all that stuff is really, really intriguing. I think there's enough like horror sci-fi stuff going on in this to keep it like really entertaining too. It's not just like serving you up these unanswerable questions time and time again. I think the weird squid baby, the xenomorph at the end, the way the engineers look, I think was a really dope design. They look like they're carved out of marble, like fucking David. I thought that was pretty cool. The worm thing, like there's enough like horror and gore in this to like really keep me engaged. The characters are a little thin. They probably could have developed them a little better. Shaw, you get a real sense of. The rest of them, I don't know. The biggest complaint I have with this movie is Idris Elba's accent. It's bad. It's a beautiful fucking movie. Like the opening shots of like these it's just gorgeous shots of Iceland, like the middle of nowhere. The design of the planet, the design of the ship. Fassbender, even though he's an android and doesn't really have like a personality, like you get a sense that dude is not pleased.
He's the best.
Yeah, and it's very like low key because he can't emote technically. I'm doing a lot of quotes here, finger quotes. But he fucking kills it, and they definitely double down with him in the next movie. That's the one thing I really fucking remember about that. Yeah, it's a gorgeous movie. The score is something we hadn't mentioned either. I think the score is fucking fantastic. It's very like majestic and sweeping and just beautiful. The vast majority of everything is done practically. The only bad thing is the old man mask. That does look like trash, but most of it looks dope. I like this movie a lot. I think as far as prequels go, it's a really good one, and the deck was definitely stacked against my boy Ridley Scott. And I think he did a pretty damn good job here. I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5.
Whoa.
Wow.
Juice. What about you?
Bring us home, Juice.
Yeah, I've seen this many times, and every time I kind of feel the same way. I'm always tricked. I'm always down to watch it, though. That's the thing about it, because like I said, I always have this impression, like I understand the general premise, like Bob lays it out. Looking for your maker, black goo, people spread their DNA around. And yet every time I get tricked in this thing where I'm like, once I get, so far in, I'm thinking to myself like, oh my God, because the problem is this movie invites you to put these pieces together, because it's giving you these little hints like, oh, look, these chest burst things, something came out of their chest, and
bugs whacked his chest.
They whacked. Like they're inviting you, like, oh, the ship, and oh, the helmet and stuff like that. And to be honest, those were kind of my favorite parts. I don't mind the idea that you're weaving in this theme of, Alien as a creation, because it was an idea that we explored in the first Alien film, about the chest bursters and stuff like that. So it's not completely new. They just dive in deeper to it. But the problem is, I think they were juggling too much. I think they want to give you some really rich lore, some really deep things to chew on, while also paying service to, the alien story and connecting these things and making it comprehensible. And to that, to be honest, I respect at least. Because I feel like there was a really strong attempt here. But to kind of Randy's point, when he said that, it made me think like, would you rather have a hamburger that's made correctly? Okay. Like it's supposed to, it's got the buns and it's got the cheese and it's got the ketchup.
How many
would you rather have like, a really awesome steak, but that's got cotton candy melted on top. You know, it's like, which, you know, having something that's like they want to make it so almost elevated and deep and thought provoking, but also they want the action, and let's throw a zombie guy in there and he's gonna beat some ass and stuff. It's just like it leaves a bad taste in my mouth, because it's like, if you're gonna give me this one story, then give me that story. That's what I kind of, you know, that's fine. Because that is not scary to me. That zombie guy beating ass does nothing for me.
It's not scary. I agree, but it's a dash of action adventure kind of.
Yeah,
it's fine.
And the thing is, like, action adventure
I don't think it's
fine.
Fine. Like, honestly,
there's nothing wrong with action adventure. It's just to me, it's like
it's also action adventure though when she drops the head and she's got to go get the head and she gets blown away in the storm and Michael Fassbender go kiss. That makes sense. That's fine, and that's action adventure. You know, it's just like, and you know what's also effectively horror, like you said, the abortion scene or whatever. That's great. Stick with that kind of stuff. And I think there's just moments in here that just kind of like fart in the stew a little bit. You know, it's like you're not like, it's just unsettling, kind of like, that's, you know, that would have been good, but now I got to think that you farted in it a little bit.
This is fart stew, isn't it?
It's just, so like we've said before, the movie's beautiful. A lot of the acting is good, but the motivations are weird, and it's written kind of weird in that way. So you're like, it's kind of this blend. I would say that some of the action is really good, and I like to see kind of where the xenomorph came from, and I think that they gave me a pretty good understanding. At the same time, the black goo, it doesn't make like a lick of sense, so everything's got this kind of like little twinge of like counterbalance, not a full counterbalance, but like a twinge of like, that's really, really good. And there's also this thing that's like, doesn't make a lick of sense. It's kind of stupid. Yeah. And that's pretty consistent throughout the movie. I feel like every good point has this kind of negative little counterpoint. And so with that, I like it too. I think it's like up there in this franchise. But I don't think it in any way like dethrones the top two of like Alien and Aliens for me. This almost like goes the opposite direction of Aliens, where they're like, oh, that's more action. It's like, this one's like, well, we're going to give you a shit ton to think about, bitch. And you're going to think about it.
Turn you fucking think, bitch.
Think. So I'm going to give this one a 3.75. I can come in the kind of the middle here.
Game over, man. It's game over.
Cool.
Think, bitch.
Thank you, bitch. One little thing I forgot to mention was this is also a sneaky Christmas movie. You got your boy Idris Elba setting up the Christmas tree.
And it has such low thresholds for those labels. It's crazy.
It's a birth of a new species. As far as it may be the savior of the world. We don't know.
David,
tune in to
seems
Alien
like the savior of the
Covenant
world beat the shit out of an old man until he died. So I don't know.
Dude, that old man makeup looks so doo-doo brown. It's like, what is up with
it? It reminds me of Midnight Mass. That, you know who I'm talking. I don't want to spoil anything if you haven't seen that, but there's a character in that has some pretty like rough looking makeup, but there's a purpose for it, and you find out as the movie goes or the show goes on what that purpose is. I kind of expected something like that to happen here, where it was like, all of a sudden, they needed him to be this younger actor for this reason, but they didn't. They really didn't.
This is like borderline nothing but trouble makeup, which that's supposed to be goofy and schlocky.
It
looks very close
to be Waylon with the fucking.
Should have given Waylon a pud collar.
Hell yeah! You're blasting that alien semen. It's real thick. You're gonna need this pud collar, boy. Let me tell you.
Whoa.
So,
oh my God.
With Justin's 3.75, that's going to put our aggregate at a 3.9. Let's jump into our Rotten Tomatoes segment and see what the critics and users think about Prometheus.
Certified.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Rotten Tomatoes segment of the show, in which I'm going to have these two gents guess within the best of their abilities what the aggregate positive score is for Prometheus by Ridley Scott. And we're going to start, as we always do, with the critic score. There are 315 reviews counted here, and I'm going to start with Bob today. Bob, out of those 315 critic reviews, what percentage would you guess are positive reviews?
I know this movie does get a decent amount of hate. I don't know if that's like from fans or critics or both, but I know this is like kind of hotly contested to some degree anyways. So I'm not going to go crazy high here. I'll take a 62%, please.
62 percentile. Juice, where are you at with it? What do you think these critics are calling for this movie?
I think the critics will probably be warmer. I'm thinking because there's a lot of great aspects going on as far as like we said, that the actor choices and some of the performances. Michael Fassbender fucking kills that. I didn't mention that, but yeah, he and then like the cinematography and stuff like that. So I think this is going to be more of a kind of critics movie, and it's a little fart snippy, and some of it's aspects. So I'll say 70.
Think. All right. Well, with 3% difference, Juice is going to take this one. 73% is certified fresh. Threshold.
That's pretty good.
Hell yeah. That's
not bad at all.
Sound like Idris Elba over here.
It's Christmas time, you know.
Hey there, cowpoke. I'm piloting this here spacey craft. Is
What
you
if
an
it was like
android?
fucking full Yosemite Sam? Oh, I just hate them alien boys.
I always wanted to fuck me an Andy-roid. Hey!
Okay, we're gonna. This is slowly turning into our review of Doom.
Yeah.
Let's jump over to our audience score. There are 250,000 plus ratings. So this is before the verified ratings era of Rotten Tomatoes. 250,000 plus. Juice, we'll start with you this time. What do you think the percentage positive scores are for that?
I think this one's going to be the lower one. I think this is going to be too fart snippy, too like over the top. People are going to be coming into this wanting a lane, action or horror or adventure. They're going to want like something a little less convoluted. And so I'll take a 60 on this one.
60. Bob, how about you?
Yeah, the butt hurt I could see floweth pretty strong. I'm going to go with the under here with a 55.
55. All right. With a difference of 8%, Juice is taking this one as well. 68%.
Okay.
Whoa!
68% positive.
Hell, you're sweet, Bob.
I gotta say that's definitely a higher score than I anticipated for that many ratings.
Yeah, for sure.
Me too.
I would not have guessed that. Here is what the critics' consensus reads. It says, Ridley Scott's ambitious quasi-prequel to Alien may not answer all of its big questions, but it's redeemed by its haunting visual grandeur and compelling performances, particularly Michael Fassbender as a fastidious android. I think that's all pretty fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me and Randy are definitely more on point this week, Bob.
My boy Rigid Cox, he knows what he's doing.
He sure does. Yeah, that's it for Rotten. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. No, I forgot.
We've almost closed out this franchise, by the way, boys.
Two more movies, and that'll do it. Yeah.
I gotta remember what the fuck happened in Covenant. I don't remember it.
Oh, the Predator versus
Alien vs. Predator 2. Alien 4, Resurrection, whatever.
Damn those verses.
Damn. I kind of like. They're very dumb movies, but I kind of like them.
Yeah,
they're dumb fun.
Like I said, that's just like the hamburger straight up. It's like, yeah, this isn't the best thing ever, but you know what it is.
It's a smash.
I drive through the window. I'll pick up a burger.
It's gonna put you on the toilet the next day, but it's fine. It's delicious.
Oh yeah, that's the best.
You got the hot shits.
Here's a negative review pulled at random because sometimes they are fun. Here's one. The best looking stupid movie I've seen all year. It's sumptuously photographed and often inane. I think that's a little reductive, but sure.
Wow.
Sumptuous. That word, there's something weird about that word. Inane's fine, but sumptuous.
That man
that's
huffing his own farts.
a lot.
Gotta puff the lips, you know?
That's
In this house.
Here's one more for the road. Overall, Prometheus is enjoyable as a summer blockbuster, but it does not offer enough to complement the Alien franchise. I don't think that's funny or...
It offers enough.
Yeah.
I mean, there's certainly much
very
worse
much
here.
it's way better at complementing the Alien franchise than it is as a summer blockbuster to me. Like,
Yeah. To be fair, it does that kind of the best.
it does. The best thing it does is relate itself to the ideas that were present in Alien and build on them.
Yeah.
Not always perfectly, but that what it doesn't do is build on the action or the horror aspects of the Alien franchise.
True.
It just kind of throws them in there.
You
for
just
the
got
most part.
clocked
Anyway.
by Randy.
Hey, you know what? You got your horror alien, you got your action alien, and you got your
Aliens.
alien.
Thanky alien.
Those thinky aliens, man, those ones suck. They will make you weep. All right.
Damn. Jesus
that's the end of our Rotten Yeah, well, Jesus was a pale android-looking motherfucker who melted into a river, apparently, and
Hell yeah,
wants to
brother.
just beat the shit out of old man Guy Pearce.
Jesus was jacked.
Oh man, our hate mail is gonna be way different this time.
The jokes that I just can't say. I can't.
Oh,
I know what you're thinking.
Spicy.
I thought it too. I had the same thought and went another direction.
Let it roll on by. Precisely.
Yeah.
that's it for Rotten Tomatoes. Bob, what you got next for us?
Let's jump into some trivia.
Let's do that.
It's totally time for trivia.
There's got to be slim trivia on this, huh, Bob? Probably not a whole lot.
There's nothing to say about Prometheus. There's a fuckload. I'll try and be brief. This movie roughly had a budget of $130 million. It grossed $403 million. Holy shit. There was a viral marketing campaign for David androids that went around. They were like in print ads and magazines and shit like that, which I don't remember any of that. I don't know if you guys ever saw any of that.
No,
I do not.
Yeah.
No.
Scott likened the engineers in this movie to the dark angels of John Milton's Paradise Lost. He said that humanity was their offspring and they were not gods. So I have not read that book, but I know this movie and
I
also
have, but I don't remember.
Yeah, the Dark Angels.
I mean, yeah, it's like that's the one with the war in heaven, and then the angels are cast down and become demons.
The ninth circle of hell and all that.
Yeah, all that
Hell
shit,
yeah.
and there's only the one like central god figure. So I guess if you look at it that way, if it's supposed to be that, then it's the end of the movie makes sense of Shaw. Her whole thing was like, yeah, but what created them? Which is both true and also harkens back to the Arrested Development. Where'd the lighter fluid come from? And that's all I could think about. Anyway, so it makes more sense than what I was thinking of that. Anyway, go ahead, Bob.
She's going to keep on digging down until she gets to the 69th circle of hell.
Well, she's not, because we've seen the sequel. So.
Hey.
My God.
The scene where David was standing in the middle of that like giant.
She has no food, by the way. She's gonna fly off on an alien ship that has atmosphere, but what's she gonna eat?
Oh my God, that android's head.
Demons.
All
right, sorry.
The scene of David standing in the middle of that giant map that like was floating all around him. Apparently, when they were filming that, they were just blasting Pink Floyd's "Dark Side of the Moon," which
that's rad.
Yeah, makes sense, right?
Cool.
I love that. Is there anything that album can't do? It just pairs well with everything. Put that shit over the Trolls World Tour movie. It would be great.
Fucking A. As long as you're high. This is interesting.
Course.
Composer Mark Streitenfeld had his orchestra play his compositions backwards and then digitally reverse them for the final film to make it sound a little more unusual and unsettling than it would have if they just played it straight forward.
I love that.
It's got like a big sweeping, kind of almost hopeful sound, but somber. Yeah, it is kind of like slightly weird or whatever. Yeah.
Oh God, yes, come with me.
Come with me.
I kind of mentioned this already. The name of the movie Prometheus is aptly fits the film's themes. It's the story of creation. The gods and the man who stood against them. In Greek mythology, the Titan Prometheus was an immortal servant of the gods who stole and gave to mankind the gift of fire, an immeasurable benefit that changed the human race forever, for better and worse, and it made mankind dangerous to the gods. So that's certainly a theme.
Yeah, I mean, that shit's interesting. It's all like, I like all the tie-ins with biblical shit and with fucking it's like all that. Like, I don't know, man. It's good stock.
There was going to be an allusion in this movie to Jesus Christ, one of the engineers being Jesus Christ, and I mean, I guess you could kind of read into that if you wanted, but it's not like explicitly stated in the movie. I think originally it was going to be, but that might have been.
Well, that was another thing that was kind of weird too, because they're like, oh, they want to come back and destroy humanity, but all the cave paintings said like they've been hanging out on Earth,
chilling,
for a while, because they said, oh, these paintings are separated by thousands of years. It's, it predates it by a millennia, and it's the dude fucking doing the,
that is a confusing thing. Like, why do they paint those? It's clearly like, come here. Like, it's clearly inviting them to go somewhere. Is it?
Yeah, but to their, why would they invite them to their facility where they make chemicals?
Just to beat them up.
Yeah. Kick their ass.
Come hang out with us on our factory.
Hey, come on over. We're going to have a good time. We're going to have
not
some
our
black
home.
Fun. Why don't you come on by? Nothing dangerous will be.
So this movie takes place in 2089 and the majority of it in 2093, which is just 29 years before the original Alien movie. What else we got?
I didn't realize it was that close to that.
Yeah, I didn't realize. That makes it kind of weirder.
It's a little bit harder to accomplish the spread of that species.
Well, also, wasn't there like
they grow pretty fast
in the original Alien? Don't they go there because there's a distress beacon?
Did they go to the Prometheus ship itself?
I think so.
Is that what happens?
They get a signal.
The horseshoe ship.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, you're right. So that does make sense then, because they will have shown up a few years later. That thing would have stowed away or whatever new version. And
here's the last bit I'll say. It's apparently the CEO of the company, I guess Fox. I guess they're talking about 20th Century Fox. Tom Rothman. He named the film Prometheus because my boy Rigid Cox couldn't decide on what title to go with. He was originally thinking of just calling it Paradise or Alien Paradise. And of course that theme rolls into Alien Covenant as well, because the Paradise Lost is like referenced quite a bit, I guess, in this movie and Alien Covenant.
To be fair, that's also kind of like a ballsy move, because I remember when they promoted this, there was some question about like, is it like really tied to Alien and stuff like that? I remember that being posited. Yeah.
There's like I don't know. There's a lot. This movie is a big swing, man, in every way.
Yeah,
I really respect the results of what is ultimately like a very, very fucking ambitious and difficult thing to pull off. So,
so yeah, that's all the trivia I got for now. Let's jump into Cooter of the week.
Straight chillin'. Cooter of the week.
Juice, what is a cooter? Why do we hunt them?
Oh, Cooter's character type in a straight chillin' exclusive. Cooter must hit 3 of these 5 points to be considered a cooter, but we want the cooter with the most points. 5 points of cooterdom are sexual deviance, manipulation, smug arrogance, overall looking attire, and overall patheticness. Boys, I think we got some cooters on our hands.
Seems that way.
Let's see. Could we say, let's start with old David. I think David might be a cooter, an android cooter.
Smug arrogance. Ding.
Yeah,
right?
Smug arrogance. Manipulation for sure.
Yeah. Well, he is a tool of manipulation and becomes his own manipulator by the end.
there's almost like this twinge of sexual deviancy with the fact that this woman gets impregnated with an alien and then he won't allow her to have an abortion.
It's not for sexual gratification, which makes it seem weird, but it is like a sexual crime in my mind to force somebody who's impregnated to keep their child.
Yeah, it's like her body and her choice, huh? Who would have thought?
I just have, this weird innate feeling that that's true.
That's morally correct.
Well, that sounds like 3 out of 5 already.
That's already 3. So what's left?
Yeah, 3.
Looking at dapper as fuck for an alien.
He looks good, but he is bleeding that milk again. These androids always got that milky shit.
He always bleeds
in your neck, please.
Skim.
And then overall patheticness. The fact when he's just like a head and like can't really do shit anymore, that's kind of pathetic a little bit.
Is that like a prerequisite for alien films? Is that the robots have to just become like heads and then just like
milky heads?
Can I get some help?
We've all been there.
Well, so yeah, either way, he hits enough. How about old Waylon himself, crusty head ass?
Dude, he looks
manipulation
terrible.
Yeah, looking tired. Check.
It's your face, dude.
He looks like literal beef jerky. Like he doesn't look like. It looks like they just like fucking spirit gummed beef jerky to his face.
It looks like a dried out ball sack. It's just like
he does. Yeah.
Oh, ball face Waylon.
Need to moisturize the old testicles there, my guy.
Damn.
You need a little lotion, my guy. It's been a long time.
A little chapped.
Manipulation. Again.
Manipulation for sure.
Smug
arrogance for sure.
Yeah.
No sexual deviancy, I don't think.
No, I don't
sexual
think so.
deviancy. I think that's too much of a stretch. I was going to say something about the relationship with him and his daughter. It's a bad relationship. I don't think it's really sexual. We don't know anything about the sexuality of his partner that got her there. So
pathetic.
I don't know.
And then pathetic. Yeah. Maybe
a little pathetic,
a little bit.
Like just he's shamed as fuck by his daughter. Who's like, the natural order is for you to just fucking die now, please, thank you.
Piece of shit.
He's like, go away.
Also, too, maybe that scientist guy who's got his little scarf thing, and his flip flops in space.
Yeah,
flip flops in space.
Dude, I didn't notice he was wearing flip.
I missed that.
He
very
was.
strange.
He was wearing a neckerchief scarf and flip flops.
I saw that
in space. He packed that. He packed it.
That guy's he's a good actor too. He's in a bunch of shit.
Yeah. So he's like he's got smug arrogance for sure. His little pouty thing that he falls into. Oh, I just made the most significant discovery ever. That's not good enough. Pathetic and smug arrogance.
Yeah.
And a tire.
And a tire. Boom. Got him. Damn, we're just right with Cooters.
We got 3.
This is a Cooter movie, It really is.
And then the engineers.
The engineers, yeah.
Yeah.
I know like thematically it's like interesting to have like these beings you think of as like superior wise gods wake up and just start like become barbarians or whatever. But it's very funny kind of at the same time that they look at this guy and then just gets up and starts wailing on motherfuckers like it's a fucking I don't know.
Yeah, the motivation of that thing too of like I'm just gonna whoop your ass. I didn't really get it. Like
I don't know either. Like
also I didn't know. Was terrified.
I also didn't know.
Tricked them. Like if it's so. But like
capture them.
I like it. Don't like it. Yeah, or just ignore them because he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah. I don't know why David would know that thing is on the way to get Shaw. He's like, he's coming for you. I'm like, how do you know?
What the fuck was that?
You're ahead.
Yeah, dude, you really surmised a lot here, guy.
Yeah.
I think we got him. I mean, we got
him. Yeah.
half.
So
the
we
damn
got plenty of
cast here.
Cooters. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, Cooter heavy movie, super heavy. Let's skip what we've been watching this week. We got a hard out tonight, but we do have 2 voicemails, so let's jump into our hotline screams.
Hotline Scream.
If you're listening and would like to call and leave a voicemail to be featured on next week's show, hit us up at 904-638-3231. First up, we're going to hear from Heidi. Let's hear what she's got to say.
Hey guys, this is Heidi. I'm a longtime listener, first-time caller from Austin. I was just calling about your last episode where you talked about a Disney ride that you would see as a movie in the future. I was going to say the bobsled, the Matterhorn bobsled would make a really good horror movie, and that's one that came to my mind I was thinking about. That's the one ride that when I was a kid, I always closed my eyes, and when that, I don't say even, when I was 15, I was still closing my eyes on that ride, so that was the one that I would suggest would make a good Disney movie next. And then I wanted to ask if you had seen the movie The Day After Tomorrow, that black and white indie movie that was filmed on the fly at Disney World and Disneyland in 2011, I believe is when it came out. Anyway, that's one worth checking out. Not the best, but a worthy effort for an indie film. So that's it. Thank you for the podcast. You're my favorite horror one. And every time I hear your little sample of Be Prepared to Be Bedazzled, I just about lose my shit. So anyway, thank you for everything, and I'll keep listening. Bye.
Well,
Be prepared to be bedazzled.
So we aim to please.
we do. Matterhorn bobsleds. I think that's an interesting choice. You guys haven't been over to Anaheim Disney, right?
I have not.
Okay.
Is that like Yeti themed?
Yeah, more or less. It's kind of a Yeti thing. It's a roller coaster with a Yeti basically, and you're going through the Matterhorn in a bobsled. Cool. Pretty self-explanatory, really. But so I'd be curious to see how that works. How you integrate both the bobsleds and a Yeti, and I could see oh no, we're snowed in sort of on the mountain sort of situation, and then being pursued by the Yeti or whatever. But the bobsled only really goes one direction, and it's towards the ground. So you kind of have to make good use of it. You can't really navigate with it.
There's a ride very similar to that in Disney Orlando. I can't remember the name of it right now, but it's like a roller coaster about a Yeti.
Expedition Everest?
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, and that coaster goes back and forth. It's an interesting, it's a fun ride.
The Mummy.
That's definitely a more modern thing.
Yeah.
Matterhorn was the 50s, and that one, one, the one you're talking about, that's the one of the only rides I've ever ridden while peaking on marijuana. And buddy,
damn, dude,
I've never been more placid in my life. I was just having a great time.
That's awesome.
I was very nervous in the line, though. Anyway, Matterhorn, I think it's a good choice.
Nice.
And then what else did she mention? First of all, she also said she's from Austin. Bob, you could have hung out.
Yeah, Bob.
I was just there.
Got back from Austin.
Just there, yeah.
Speaking about what you've been watching, I know what you've been watching. Booty's hole bouncing.
Booty's hole.
Booty's hole bouncing. That's what
Booty's holes be bouncing.
I'm an executive by day and a wild man by night.
Wild man by night.
Mr. Bachelor Rob over here.
Randy,
Mr. Bachelor.
She mentioned that Day After Tomorrow movie.
Oh yeah, is that the right one?
I don't. World After Tomorrow, maybe. I don't know. I've not seen it.
Oh yeah, I have not seen that either.
What is?
Sounds interesting.
No, not Tomorrow.
So it's an indie film that was shot while someone was in Disney World.
Yeah,
is that what
it was not licensed. They were not.
Yeah.
Giving go ahead. It was all very low key.
Cool.
It was I early in the podcast I came very close to picking that movie a number of times back when it was just round robin style. It's a horror.
Escape from Tomorrow.
Escape from Tomorrow. That's what it is. There you go. I was trying to look it up. And it's not a movie. It's a fascinating movie for the fact that it is filmed at Disney, but it's a very flawed movie in so many ways. Very many ways. So I don't know. I never quite got to it, but I was just interested to hear people's thoughts on it. So maybe one day we'll get to it. I don't know. That it is like it's just one of those sort of oddball movies that really only exists due to like odd circumstances, and that's what makes it worth watching. Otherwise, it's a kind of a weird one. I don't want to go too deep into it until we do cover it. But
I like the little poster though.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. Solid. Yeah. Thanks for calling in, Heidi. Definitely good to hear from you.
So I will say, when you said from Heidi, I thought that was some new nickname we were giving to Heidelberg.
My boy.
Here from Heidi. I was like,
be.
oh, here we go, Heidelberg.
We got Heidi and we got Heidelberg.
Heidelberg,
right.
Yeah.
Thanks for calling in, Heidi.
Yeah.
Thanks, Heidi.
We got one more voicemail. Next up is from our boy who we definitely know, but he did not say his name, so I'm not going to. Let's hear what he has to say.
Okay.
All right, I'm taking over this show real quick. I'm the new extra read all about it guy. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but there's supposed to be a movie coming out, Salem's Lot. It's a Stephen King bullshit. And I read that book, right? And I was like, oh, yeah, that's a pretty good book. And then I found out, oh, hey, they're making a movie. That's cool. I can be that guy. You know, I've read the book guy. I'll be that guy. I'm never that guy. So I was kind of happy. And it's supposed to be made by, I think the dude that's making it is like he's entitled to those Annabelle movies I've never seen. So it's probably not going to be that good. But I'll go see it. I like that book, you know, of vampires. Oh, yeah, all right. Maybe it'll be spooky. It hasn't come out, man. It's been stuck in production hell for like 2 years, man. And I'm the only person that even knows this movie's coming out. It's already shot. They actually did some filming around the area I kind of live in. Fucking, where is it, Universal Studios? What the fuck's going on? So, my question to you guys, because I'm currently going through hell, is what's the longest you've been hyped for something that kind of got stuck in production hell? It can be a movie, a fucking video game, it can be anything. The longest you've been hyped, and was it worth it? I know there's been some shit that's been made that it took years to make. And I'm currently dealing with that with Salem's Lot. When it comes out, I will let you guys know, but I don't think it ever is. I think it's gone forever. All right. Later.
I love that he thinks that by coming on this show, Universal is going to be receiving a message from him.
They're listening.
Because they're such avid listeners.
They're listening.
Thanks for calling, Mystery Man.
So this movie was supposed to come out this September, and it's had a couple different release dates. They keep pushing it back. Right now, it has no release date. There is some sort of managerial shit going on. People changing positions and getting different titles. So like I guess they don't know what the fuck to do with it, if they're going to put it in theaters or put it straight to streaming or whatnot. So yeah, this dude, the guy that directed this. His name is Gary Doberman, and he directed Annabelle Comes Home, and that's really the only thing he's ever directed. But he wrote that Swamp Thing TV series. He wrote all the Annabelle movies. He wrote The Nun. He wrote It, the newer It. Anyways, so he's written a lot of horror shit.
A lot of horse shit.
Who knows when we're going to get it? To answer his question, like something that had been stuck in development hell that you know we'd been waiting for a while to see. This isn't really like development hell, but I waited a solid 2 years for Halloween Kills. I mean, we all did in one way or another, but they had it done, and then the pandemic hit, and it sat on the shelf for another year, which was a bummer. But that was the first thing that came to mind when he asked that question.
Yeah.
I can think of a few things that like disappointed me or otherwise just took a long time. Like I could say that like I love Zelda. This is not news, but the new Tears of the Kingdom, it took like a long fucking time for that game to come out, like a long fucking time. And a lot of people got really pissed off. Huh? Yeah, it did. It took like 5 years. Yeah, that's a long production cycle for a game like this.
Okay.
No, it is. It's like they delayed it like 3 times.
Okay.
Anyway, but I love that game, so I'm fine with it. I think that like probably the only thing that's coming to mind, and this is a little like, I was a big Beast Wars Transformers kid. I'm sure I brought that up before. Yeah. Like that was one of my like very early like genre loves when I was a kid. And so when the Transformers movie was announced, it was like years of me wishing they would do a live action Transformers movie. And then the Transformers movie came out, and it was real fucking bad. And I hated it, and I still hate it. And it's like never really recovered as a property from me, except for like the nostalgia factor of the stuff I liked as a kid, which is probably the way it ought to be because it's meant for children. So whatever.
Just as a reference, Skyward Sword came out in 2011, which was the main release that came out before Breath of the Wild, which came out in 2017.
Yeah,
so
but it wasn't using the same map and assets. It took a year for them to make Majora's Mask after Ocarina of Time released.
That's the only example of that happening, though.
Yeah, it's the only other example of a game being built on the same fucking Zelda game being built on the same infrastructure.
Yeah, that's fair. But anyways. I know you're hyped for that. Just wait and count on that. Actually, I was listening to an episode an old episode from like 2019 or something, and you were referencing like, "Oh my god, that new Zelda! I can't wait to get it." Or whatever.
Dude,
it's like 3 years out.
Fucking wait. Yeah, and I'm glad that it's fine. I don't have any regrets about it because it turned out great. Like, if it hadn't turned out great, if it had sucked a lot, of that would have been because I waited for it to suck. So I understand the Salem's Lot concern for somebody. Yeah. Also, I love being the guy who's read the book. I love being that guy, but I just don't want to read books, so I just never get to.
There's one thing that I'm not really excited about, but I'm very like morbidly curious. I can't anticipate any way that it's good, and I can't believe that it's moved to this point. But it's the Borderlands movie that got fucking Jack Black in it. It's got what's her name? Jamie Lee Curtis is in it. Cate Blanchett is in it, and I'm just like, what is this gonna be? I can't imagine it's
Eli Roth
good.
Movie, right?
And Eli Roth is directing it. And I'm like, this is gonna be the weirdest shit. And I love Borderlands, but they've been talking about this for a long time. And every time they do, I'm like, no, what are you talking about? And the more details they add, like the characters they're gonna include, some of them are from like Borderlands 2, and I'm like, what are they doing? I don't know what they're doing. Like, I don't know. That's going to be weird. And it's got a date for 2024, but I will see what happens, I guess.
Dude, you could say Evil Dead too, by the way. Like, I wasn't disappointed by Evil Dead when it finally came out, but that was one that was like rumored for fucking ever.
Yeah, because there was even rumor of Ash like versus Jason versus Freddy or whatever. Yeah. All right.
Cool.
Good one.
Solid question, Mystery Man. Thanks for calling. Again, if you guys are listening and want to hit us up, leave a voicemail for next week's show. You can do so at 904-638-3231. You guys have any prompts you want to throw out?
Heading into the last week of August.
I kind of like that question.
Show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like the question of like what property, what IP, what media, piece of media were you waiting for forever, and you were unfortunately disappointed by?
Yeah.
I think that's a great question. Thank you, Mystery Man.
Thank you, sir, for doing our job. Call in, let us know. We're going to be back next week with a brand new show. We're talking about Dark Water from 2002. That is the original Japanese horror film. There is a remake. I think there's maybe more than one. There's at least one. Don't watch that. 2002, Dark Water.
All right.
Chosen by your boy Donkster Sam. Slam Your Eyeballs.
We've been knocking out some classic Japanese flicks.
Yeah, working through it, and I'm here for it. I'm about it. Slam your eyeballs into it. Get ready for next week's show. Until then, find us on all the social medias, all of them. If you want to join us on our Slack channel, just hit us up in one of our social media accounts, and I'll send you a link so you can do so. And until next time, as always, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling.
Game over, man. It's game over.